Hey everybody, happy November. Doug here, one of the host, producers, and creators of the John Harvey Life podcast, bringing you out a review roundup episode this week. But not my notice, there was no episode last week of the full show of the John Harvey Life podcast. That was on me. We had a bunch of friends coming out of town to visit for Halloween, so scheduling wise, Nick and I went to the screening last week. We couldn't find the time to record an episode, but have no fear, the boys and I will be back this week better than ever. But on this week's episode, I'm going to be reviewing Five Nights at Freddy's, as well as Sony Pictures' Dumb Money. So I got two reviews for you. I'm looking forward to reviewing on the show. As always, guys, you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform of choice. We also have a full audio show on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midway Avenue Productions. While you're on YouTube, while you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or if you're in this podcast listening on, hit that review button, hit that follow button, leave a review, leave a rating, hit the follow button. It helps us out so much, guys. Seriously, thank you so much for your ongoing support. It means the world to us. It means the world to me. The show couldn't exist without you guys. So thank you so much for your ongoing support. Like I said, guys, last week was a bit of a crazy week. We had friends in town for Halloween. Nick and I went to the Five Nights at Freddy's screening last Wednesday. It was just timing was not on our side, unfortunately. So I want to put out my review for these movies as soon as possible. Always, again, a little bit of a big news too. My girlfriend and I became dog parents a few weeks ago. It's been kind of a crazy October, so why wasn't many episodes out this past month. That was on me. Like I said, my girlfriend and I adopted a really beautiful 2.5-year-old collie shepherd mix, Blue. That he's the best. But yeah, guys, welcome back. Like I said, we're gonna have more frequent of the shows. Again, that was on me. Again, totally on me. That's past month. So hope you're excited for a lot of upcoming cool stuff. I know we got Hunger Games coming out. The Holdovers coming out, which I cannot wait to review. I love that movie so much. But in the meantime, guys, like I said, this week's episode I'll be reviewing Five Nights at Freddy's, which was a huge box office smash this past weekend, as well as Sony Pictures' movie Dumb Money, which I thought was very, very, very smart and very fun, and fortunately didn't do well at the box office. So let's get into it, shall we? I'm going to start with, of course, the bigger one, which is Five Nights at Freddy's. And, going to this one, I was very curious. I had a lot of curious things about it because I've never played the game. I'm a gamer, but I played stuff like, GTA, Call of Duty, Spider-Man, stuff like that, Halo. But I never got into that Five Nights at Freddy kind of like chaos when that phenomenon that came out. So never got into it, obviously. But, I was looking forward to it because, again, I'm a Blumhouse fan. I also a big Josh Hutcherson fan, Matthew Lillard fan. But, again, I like going into things blind, not knowing much. I watched the first trailer, obviously, and that was it. I want to go in blind as possible. But a year ago, I knew something was going to be up because, no, not up, but I had my little bit of a kind of concern was that, Universal and Peacock were doing the day-and-day release. Both the movie going to be debuted in theaters and on Peacock the very same day. If you heard the show before, I'm not the biggest fan of that method or strategy. I know during COVID when that happened, HBO Max and Warner Brothers lost a lot of money with stuff like the Suicide Squad, Godzilla vs. King Kong, and I know it was still COVID. We were getting out of that. We became vaccinated and the vaccines, obviously, but it cost them a lot of money. And I was thinking, wow, these day and day release streaming things kind of hurting. Oh, Dune was a big example. I thought it was kind of hurting the bigger box office picture of getting people back to the theaters. You're also playing these big movies, whether it was Matrix 4 or King Richard or Dune, Godzilla vs. Kong, Suicide Squad. The list goes on and on. Or I think it was Conjuring 3 was another one. It was just like, hey, In the Heights. It was a lot of movies that were affected by the box office at a time where we needed people back in the theaters, supporting these movies on the big screen with an audience, with the crowd. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So I do have my doubts on day-and-day release. I know Universal's still doing it with some of their movies, i.e. the Halloween trilogy, the last two of the franchise, which I know were very, very divisive. I enjoyed Halloween Kills and Ends for what they were. Not the hugest fan, not the biggest fan of those movies, but I love the 2018 one so much. But I had my thoughts, and then when I saw this announced a year ago that it's going to be on day-and-day release on Peacock, I was like, oh, no. Because to me, I'm like, you don't have faith. You don't have faith in your product, your movie. And I don't know. I was kind of getting skeptical because I was like, I don't know much about the game, but I know there's a huge, huge diehard fan base for it. So it still piqued my interest, but it kind of like I wasn't as excited that I probably would have been if it wasn't for the day-and-day release stuff. But with that said, I'm going to put that to the side. This movie also too at the screening we went to, we as press we check in, we walk in, we're good to, and we kind of like sit down. it was amazing seeing the turnout for this screening because there was like over like 200 fans that people, and a lot of them couldn't even get in because it was just like, whoa, this is a moment because there's a huge diehard fan base for this franchise, and it's amazing because it's really cool to see like people show up to the theaters and really supporting what they love. If you're true to your fan base, they're gonna show up whether it's Five Nights at Freddy's, DC, Marvel, Star Wars, whatever. I do think the hardcore fan base will show up no matter what. And it was really cool walking to that theater, seeing people with their shirts on, their fan art, stuff like that. And it was really cool to see that kind of like that phenomenon still like reaching the theatrical experience. So that was really cool. I'll tell you what, too. This movie for sure ruined Chuck E. Cheese for me. I don't go there anymore, obviously, but still, if I go back there, I'm like, I can't unsee this movie now and when I go to Chuck E. Cheese or whatever. But it's my little joke that I had for the movie. So for me, again, going into it, not knowing anything about this franchise or the game, whatever, I was very curious. I'll tell you what. Starting off the good, I love practical effects. I think I'm appreciating them more and more now with more movies. The Jim Henson's Creature Shop made the designs of the creatures of the animatronics, and man, they look fantastic. There's definitely CGI to be used there, obviously in certain parts, but wow, like the texture and the just the detail of these animatronic suits look phenomenal. And comparing it to what the game looks like, they did an amazing job of copying it to screen incredibly well. And like I said, like Jim Henson, Muppets, the list goes on and on. Landreth, like there's so many things that they've been a part of. I think also the original Ninja Turtles, which is a big part of my childhood, was made by the Jim Henson Creature Shop. So the suits and animatronics look phenomenal, and I was just again really in awe of that. Also, too, the set design and production design to me was really damn good. Blumhouse to me, I think sometimes will have really good production stuff and not so much good production work or production sets. Set design, and to me, this was a really win for Blumhouse of like, wow, like the production and like the set of alone looks phenomenal. Like the detail on the walls of posters and tokens and games looks truly authentic, and it looked really good to like overall lore of the movie and the storytelling. Because I'm like, if you have this really important like place, which is Freddy Fazbear's, which is the place that the movie takes place in. It's a winner. It's a make it or break it. If you can't believe that this is gonna be like where we're gonna be in the next hour and a half to 2 hours, or it doesn't look as real or realistic, you're gonna lose us. And I thought the set design and the production design alone of this location was incredible. Again, I think one of Blumhouse's best, if you ask me. Like I said, with that said, the environment too is like you feel like, oh, this is definitely a rundown abandoned Chuck E. Cheese. And then also I'm a sucker for like stuff that's set in like abandoned warehouses or abandoned theaters, stuff like that. I know I love stuff like that for some reason. And that was, to me, I was just like, wow, it was very eerie. It was very disturbing. And like you could tell like, ooh, we don't belong here. We're walking around like something's off. Something doesn't feel good. And I just felt to me, I was like, oh, it's so off-putting, but in the best possible way. I was like, wow, it really kind of entices you, very intrigues you into like what we have in store for us. So I like that a lot. Again, the lore of it, as I said, well, it has the whole dismay of it, like what, like if these walls could talk, what would they say? What's so haunted about this place? What's so about it? I love that about it. When it gets dark, it gets really dark. There's some parts where for a PG-13 rating, it goes places where I was like, wow, this is okay. Blumhouse is kind of pushing the envelope of like how far can we go with a PG-13 rating, i.e. Megan. Beginning of the year, that was a PG-13 movie as well, but there was some like pretty dark, some horrific stuff for a PG-13 rating, or as much as they could given that rating. And same thing here, when there's scenes where you're like, wow, for this rating of a movie, they got away with some pretty gross stuff. And I was kind of like, wow, good for them. Hats off to them that they were trying to push the rating as much as they can. So give them that. And also too, I grew up watching Matthew Lillard on stuff like Scooby Doo, obviously. Another one, She's All That was a big one of mine growing up. And also got older, I loved the first Scream, and so it was really cool to see him back in a big movie like this. Or he's a good dude too, so it's always kind of cool seeing him just kind of like pop up and stuff like that. And I thought who he plays and his character was very intriguing. Also, I thought he was really kind of giving to his performance. Like he was kind of just like, I'm in this movie. I'm gonna do my best. I think he's a gamer too, so it would be kind of cool if he knew like, hey, I want to like really kind of do this character, do this this franchise justice. So it was really cool seeing him back on the big screen. And And with the humor, I do judge humor a lot more than I think more than recently. And when the humor works, it definitely works in this one for sure. Nick and I were definitely laughing at a couple of times, or like laughing out loud. Like, oh, it's kind of funny. So I definitely there's times where it had me kind of laughing out loud or kind of just like chuckling. Like, oh, that's pretty funny. It was a good joke here and there, or some of the cameos that Nick mentioned in our reaction that they were kind of funny. So when humor works, it definitely worked for me for the most part. Besides Matthew Lillard and Hutcherson, who I also like, I like that it was a really relatively unknown and small cast. I didn't know the other actors playing the aunt or playing the officer or playing the kind of like other neighborhood goon stuff like that. I like that I didn't know like the main cast except for Hutcherson and Lillard. Like I said, girl who plays Vanessa, I didn't know. Girl who played Abby, I didn't know. Girl who plays Aunt Jane, and kind of like everyone else around the area, around in the storyline, I didn't really know who they were. I thought that was cool. We didn't see like the kids from It or Stranger Things showing up, or I don't know, so like Timothy Chalamet playing this role, or someone like I don't know, someone like that, or Millie Bobby Brown. This was a very, except for the two Lillard and Hutcherson, this was a very unknown cast. I'm like, cool. It definitely like felt more real at times with having that kind of cast. So again, I give him kudos for that as well. Again, as you know, Nick mentioned our out of theater reaction. Like it's some of the cameos I didn't really know about that Nick kind of explained to me. Like, oh, it's kind of funny because the cameos that kind of had like a connection to the game somehow, or some kind of film world scenario kind of thing. So that was kind of fun. And the opening scene of this movie really got me. I was like, whoa, okay, I like this. I like this a lot. Like it's kind of setting the tone a little bit, and I love a good kind of just like quick action scene that kind of sets the mood or like opens the movie like that, or even closes the movie. But this one, the opening scene definitely had me like, oh, I've been for it. With that said, I can line off a lot of pros. I have a lot more issues, unfortunately, with this movie than things I like. Because I was looking forward to liking this movie. The trailer sold me for sure. Despite me knowing that it was a day-and-day release, Peacock release as well as theaters, and given that track record for the past day-and-day releases for Peacock, I was still optimistic. But like I said, I wanted to like this movie a lot. I really did. But this is where I had issues with it. I think to me it felt rushed at times where, it could have been it didn't feel like fully developed. Like this was a first draft of a script that was like, what, first draft, make a few tweaks, and then we're off to the races, we're making the movie. And I've been, again, as someone who's seen a lot of movies, I'm a huge film nerd, film buff. I think that this movie could have definitely benefited from a tighter script or just a more developed script, because it's all over the place at times, unfortunately. Or I think the movie could even benefited from a longer runtime, because it's like an hour 45, hour 50. And I looked at my watch at one point, it was an hour in, I was like, when are we getting to this stuff? Because they for sure set up a lot of stuff where it's like, wait, we're an hour in already. Why haven't we got this yet? Why haven't we seen this yet? Or why isn't this explained yet? And it's like, you spend an hour showing us a lot of stuff of the backstory for certain things. You're just like, wait a second, can we move on to this now? And then they spend a lot of time. I wouldn't say waste a lot of time, but it felt like they kind of wasted a lot of time that they could have spent on other stuff instead of this. If you ask me personally, so I was kind of like, oh, okay, maybe they'll deliver later. And it felt like this movie could have used a lot more breathing and runtime, or just more time in general to like fully develop the story. So that's why I had a huge issue with. Like I said too, I think I don't want to spoil too much for this movie, but if you already saw it, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm trying to keep as non-spoiler as possible. To me, I wish they spent more time at Freddy's, because I felt like there was a lot more time being spent outside of in the real world, in the outside world, in like suburbia, the house, the office, restaurants. I felt like they could have spent more time in actual Freddy's, because you get this really amazing set design, set in production that you made of the replica of Freddy Fazbear's, and you had the huge, beautiful animatronics that are really well made. Not being beautiful, but you know what I mean. But like really well made, crafted stuff. Use that. You want to use that as much as you can. That is your kind of like that's your golden ticket. Like bring that in for us to kind of like be in that world and be in that lore. So I was kind of hoping they would spend more time with it, and then you kind of feel like they kind of spend more time outside of the actual pizzeria. So you're like, oh, man, come on now. And I know this movie has a fan base of more younger audiences, like kind of like a pre-tween or teens, like it's kind of your first entry level horror movie. With that said, I do feel like the rating of it having PG-13 kind of held it back a lot. You're just like, oh man, if they had it rated R, they could have done a lot more stuff with it, or could have like not kind of resisted more, not held back. They could have done a lot more with terms of violence and the disturbing nature of what capable these animatronics are capable of, and like the horrors that kind of like wreak those animatronics as well as the pizzeria itself. You're just like, oh man, this would have been crazy. So I get it. It's also, again, you can make more money too sometimes with a PG-13 rating for a horror movie, but one with an IP like this especially. So I get it, but as a horror fan, as a movie fan, I think having the rated R would have benefited a lot, if you ask me personally. Another thing I really got to knock it down for is the acting. Again, I'm a Hutcherson fan for sure, and I praised having the unknown cast. The acting in this is really unimpressive, and they don't really give anything. You can tell that they're either underacting or overacting, and there's times where for character Mike played by Hutcherson and Vanessa played by Elizabeth Vale, they're not really giving much. It's either like kind of just like one note performances or just kind of like, oh no, she going in there, it's not good. It was very overacting at times. You're just like, oh no, like this is a studio decent, not huge, but like lower budget, not lower, but like for a Blumhouse pick, 25 mil was kind of high on their end for a Blumhouse movie. So it just felt like the acting was just very stale at times, or this was kind of more for like a paycheck. Like I'm doing for like for the fans, whatever, for a paycheck. And to me, I was just like, oh man, the acting to me is not giving anything. And like I said, it comes off as very stale at times. You're like, oh man, they gotta put more into this or make us believe this. But I didn't really feel that throughout. I mean, I think the biggest thing I got from it was Matthew Lillard's character, like what he was doing in the movie. That his performance to me, I was like, okay, I'm intrigued by this. Like, where is he going to go with this? How's he going to perform this? That I was into. I was like, cool, I'm into this. Let's go. But everyone else just felt just so kind of like bland. And I know it's hard, even with child actors too. I know with her, the character of the sister in this, it's to me just like it's I think of like stuff like It or Stranger Things, or it's tough. With child actors, it's different obviously, but we've seen it done so well now. Or even think like the Adam Project, the young boy playing the young Ryan Reynolds. We see it now the past couple of years that like that trend of like bad child acting has kind of like gotten better, but this one kind of sets it back again. Like, oh man, we thought we were kind of past this, but it just, to me, there's no chemistry between the leads of Josh Hutcherson and Vanessa, and even with his sister too. Like it feels like more like it's kind of just like a Big Brother program, not like more like a actual sibling. So it just didn't feel authentic to me or feel real. Even, yeah, like I said, some of the characters aren't even that likable because you're just like, what like we want to root for you, we want to see you do stuff, we want to see you kind of like succeed, but like I'm not on board with you because I don't see like how can we get on board with you, how can we like you, because it's just like it's giving nothing. Again, for an antagonist, for a protagonist, you want to have some kind of like connection with them, or kind of like, okay, I'm on the ride for them, let's do it. I didn't feel that way whatsoever, and I do think that they're just not likable. Like there's nothing in their characters that kind of like me like, oh, I want to see this guy win, or I want to see this person win, or see this girl kind of like survive. No one's likable, and that's kind of, and for me, I want to see a movie that are likable characters, or you want to root for the bad guys, like Deadpool, who's got an anti-hero, or a Logan, who's also an anti-hero, but you want to really just like have some kind of like likable qualities that you can like kind of like attach yourself with. And this movie, there was none of that, personally. And another thing too that really bothered me, I don't like things that are unexplained or go unanswered. It's maybe one of the past couple of years too, I've been noticing that if a movie has things that they're gonna set up, they don't explain, or they don't like kind of like answer, I get super frustrated, and I'm like, I'm out. It takes me out of the movie entirely or show. I'm like, if you're gonna have all this kind of like stuff set up, or this lore that won't be lore to be explored, or even explained, and you don't. Again, it's the first draft of a script kind of feeling. It's like, well, what were you guys thinking? What were you trying to accomplish with this? How do we get from here to there? And there was a lot of things that like are not explained whatsoever, whether it's Josh's character and things that are revealed and twists. I'm going to keep this non-spoiler as possible, but they don't go mention into it, or they don't explain like, oh yeah, this happened and here's what happened. They say what happens and that's it. They walk away from it. And again, I've been very vocal about this in other shows and things I reviewed. I'm like, man, there's something that I can again, give me an answer to like this because it's you're setting all this up. It's a big part of the story, but you end the movie of like, that's it, and the answer kind of means cliche of like, oh, it's up to the fans' interpretation. I hate that. To me, that's a very kind of like, I feel like kind of like, oh, like I don't know, half-ass answer. Just like, oh, come on now, like you don't have an answer to begin with. You're kind of saying that to like kind of like, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a very kind of just like easy way to go, and that to me is like that's lazy storytelling, and that's lazy script writing, screenwriting, and lazy direction, if you ask me. So again, there's a lot of time that is leading up to this like kind of reveals and stuff like that, and the reveal itself is very messy and not explained well whatsoever. Um, and to two, the script to me was all over the place. I don't know what it's trying to accomplish. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that either were unexplained or not fully developed to a point where it's frustrating because, like I said, there's so much time being spent on certain things and like crucial stuff to the plot too. Where I'm like, oh, okay, where are we going with this? Let's go. Okay, and again, stuff like the background of Freddy's itself, the mystery of that place and what they reveal. It's just not explained. It kind of goes, there you go, that's it, and it's like. And for me, like I said, it's frustrating because I'm sitting there. I'm like, I want to know more about this. I want to know how this happened. I don't know how this person did this or how this thing became that. I want to know, and I just don't get that in this movie at all. And I'm like, wow, this to me again is lazy storytelling and lazy writing. Um, Seeing the trailer too, there's quote unquote dream sequences. Oh my goodness, there's times where it felt repetitive after one after another, and to me got super boring. Where I was one time I was like, oh, another one where they're trying to make it crucial to the plot, but it's just another one. It's another one. It's another dream sequence. And if you're making it different each time, okay. And they kind of did at times, but it was like it was more time spent with these kind of dream sequences than there was actually in Freddy's. And I'm like, again, you're taking away from the actual lore of why people want to come to the game. They want to for fans of the game. They want to come to the movie for the killer animatronics, the pizzeria itself, and how to survive this craziness nightmare that's going on. And if you take away from it, it takes away the scare. It takes away kind of like the anticipation of like the thrills and the scare and like the story nature of it all. It's like going back to game. He leaves, going back to house dream sequence or dream sequence during at Freddy's. It's like you're spending a lot of time on things that are super repetitive or things that don't have or not moving the story forward. And that to me was like really the biggest takeaway from this movie. I'm like, man, you're spending too much time on things that you probably shouldn't. When the humor works for me, it works for me. But I will say though, there's a lot of jokes that to me just went over my head or just fell flat. Where I'm like, wow, again, this is a draft one of a script that like, oh, this is pretty funny, and they didn't like tune up the jokes or kind of like make all the jokes consistent. Because again, there's funny jokes, there's funny jokes. Then there'll be like a couple minutes of just like unfunny stuff going on. You're like, all right, you had me in the first half, you had me in the beginning. Now it's like it's so inconsistent with the humor. I'm like, and that bothers me too because if you have humor in the movie, especially with a horror movie, it has to be consistent enough that like, hey, this is funny throughout, not funny at certain points here and there or at the beginning. Have it funny throughout, and I think some of the jokes do fall flat, even though I praise some of them at the beginning of the movie or during the middle of the movie too. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing how again it did really well this box office weekend with an 80 mil, which is again for a Blumhouse movie, it's a win. It made money back. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing the like kind of how it performed on Peacock as well, like how much more money it could have made if it had been just a full theatrical non-day release stuff. So again, I'm looking forward to it. But as I mentioned, I can't be too optimistic when a movie has a day and day release stuff nowadays because to me it's like you're kind of just putting this movie out there, or like when the studio has a movie coming out in theaters and they go, oh, selling it to Netflix or whatever streamer last minute, it shows like there's no confidence in this movie. You're just dumping it on whatever streaming service that will buy it from you guys. So I do feel like that unfortunately with this movie a little bit, and I felt that with other movies in the past of like you're just putting it on here because. No, we don't believe in it. We're save our asses, put it on streaming, people watch it then, and call it a day. So it's hard, with the age of streaming, kind of rising stuff like that. It's unfortunate, excuse me, but like it's it's nature of the business too, how it's changing. I don't, I again as an aspiring filmmaker myself, with Nick and Joelle and Moses, we're all aspiring filmmakers. This was made by a first-time director. This was her first major, I won't say her first major motion picture. well, for a studio movie, that is, I want to say her first big movie. Um, I I like that. Again, I appreciate that. I appreciate that Blumhouse is still taking risks on their filmmakers, for some directors. I don't think a movie like this with a huge, excuse me, with a huge fan base like this should have had a more experienced director or experienced writer. I think the guy who made the game, Scott Cawthon, excuse me, allergy season, also co-wrote the screenplay as well. And he got Seth Cuddyback was one of the writers, as well as Emma Tammy, who's also the director. You got a lot of unexperienced writers and directors on this movie. I would have tried if I was if I'm Blumhouse, Jason Blum, and in the universe I'm making this movie. I would have hired at least someone who had maybe a few horror movies down their resume, or at least a couple or a few films on the resume in general, because I feel like trusting this movie with a huge IP, with a huge fan base, with a first time director is kind of like it's a gamble. It's a gamble, and I think critically wise, this movie is not done well. Critically is not well at all, but box office wise, it's done phenomenal because of the fans of the game. I would definitely be more comfortable. Like, hey, I'm gonna give this movie to a first time director, to a experienced director, either a horror director, a few movies under their belt, or a filmmaker that had a few movies already done under their belt as well. And I think it's risky. It's very risky, but again, look at Jordan Peele. Excuse me, Jordan Peele has an example again. He was a comic before, and he had stuff me on set, whatever. And then obviously with Get Out, he had huge success, obviously. But also that was also a 3.5 mil budget movie. This is a 25 mil budget movie with a huge IP. I think it would have been smart to either had experienced writers come in and co-write it with her, or have her make another movie first and then come in to do it, because I think having the experienced filmmaker would have been really crucial to the movie itself. So again, that's just me. And again, unanswered stuff. This movie ends without a full resolution, and they definitely opened the door to a sequel. And if they were going to do one, they'll probably do one. Given how much money this movie made, I wish they spent more time developing the story and also the direction and where to go from next, because there's a lot of things that were unexplained and unanswered, and a lot of things I think fans, and even myself too, not being a fan of the game, not knowing the game prior to this, would have think would appreciate it more, because there's a lot to set up here, a lot of things that that worked in this movie that I wish they spent more time in, because there's really some cool stuff where I was like, oh, they explained this more, or they did this more, this would have been great. Or what I'm hearing too, and I agree with other critics, is that they should have spent the entire movie at the pizzeria with Mike, played by Hutcherson, the security guard, just kind of being surviving 5 nights there, not going back home or going somewhere else, because you kill the lore, you kill the scary, kill the spookiness of it all if you keep going back and forth. Just keep him there and have him survive the five full nights there, and not just worry about going back and leaving, stuff like that. It would make the movie a lot more tighter. I think it would have made the script a lot more tighter as well. So if they're going to do that again, that's what I would do. Just focus more on the animatronics themselves and the lore of the place and the history of the place, and discovering more stuff while you're there, not going any other place. Just keep it at the pizzeria. Like I said, I think sometimes simple is better. That to me sounds simple. It's a tight script. You have this movie start with the security guard pulling up. First night, okay, something, but you develop, and you kind of you crank up the craziness and the horror stuff throughout each night, and you feel kind of claustrophobia of trapped there for 5 days or 5 nights. So, and that would work. Like I said, I don't hate this movie. I think a lot of fellow critics are not liking this movie. There's parts where I really enjoy it. I like the animatronics, like the lore of it all. It just felt really flat to me in a lot of places. I'm gonna give this movie right now, give it a 6 at a theater reaction with Nick. I'm gonna give it more of a 5.5 to a 6. I'm gonna more 5.5 right now, because like I said, there's parts where I really do like it. I do enjoy it. And again, I was really impressed with. But there's times where I'm just man, this is a big letdown. This is a big kind of man, they could have done so much with this, and it's kind of just felt flat. Or again, it feels like a very kind of almost a student film at times, because of how unexperienced some of the writers and directors are involved with this. So, yeah, 5.5. I think Nick might be more favorable on his review when he reviews it on the show. But look out for that then. But yeah, even though it's on Peacock too, excuse me, I would definitely, if you're a fan of this franchise, fan of this IP, or fan of this game, I would still say, you know what, go see it in theaters. I know we passed Halloween already, but if you are a fan of this franchise or this game, go see it in theaters. I think you'll get more of experience theaters than Peacock. But if you're low on the cash or low on the funds, whatever, you're going like, I'm watching on Peacock. I have Peacock. Watch on Peacock. I'm not gonna be like, oh, like, you're hurting theatrical. But I do think you might get a slightly better experience in the theaters than Peacock. But hey, that's just me. So I guess again, congrats everyone for a good opening weekend. Again, that's awesome. I'm glad this movie did really well in theaters. Again, it helps more people come back to the theaters. It helps the theater business, the theatrical experience even more. That's awesome. But hoping for a sequel, it's a very improved sequel or a better story. Alrighty, so this movie next, Dumb Money. So, excuse me, because the allergies have been crazy this past couple months. Dumb Money is one actually I was very looking forward to. So I saw this a few weeks ago. Like I said, I got kind of caught in the way with Adopting the Dog and other movies coming the way, like Exorcist. So I've been very behind. But Dumb Money to me, okay, this is a movie that I've been looking forward to. Again, we all lived this a couple of years ago during COVID because it was the crazy GameStop and AMC crash, and I knew a little bit of stock market through my dad and like investing here and there through friends and family, but I knew nothing about this story much except for like how everyone just went Robin Hood and everything was betting on the stock. So again, the setup is 2021. We're 2020, 2021. We're still in the middle of the pandemic, and GameStop and AMC started blowing up. Excuse me. GameStop started like just blowing up the stock, and it's like, whoa, what's going on here? And it's the stock kept going, and it was huge. It was a huge moment. Again, even during COVID, it was a huge moment that was happening. The movie has a fantastic cast. Greg Kalepsi, who did this one, who I'm a huge fan of, has done stuff like the Friday Night remake in 2011, which I absolutely love. Cruella, also again loved as well. I, Tonya, he did a show called is it Pam and Tommy? Yeah, Pam and Tommy, about Pam Anderson and Tommy Lee. And also it's a great cast as well. I've been a huge fan of this guy for a long time. So when I heard he was involved, he did a great job working with ensemble cast and just a great cast and solid direction of kind of these quote unquote biopics, but like kind of like narrative storytelling of like true events. And I think I'm very impressed with his direction and as a storyteller. Again, excuse me. Great acting throughout the entire from everyone. I think from Paul Dano to Seth Rogen, America Ferrara, Anthony Ramos, Pete Davidson, Shailene Woodley. List goes on and on. This cast is phenomenal, and everyone brings their A game. I think the cast ensemble together is phenomenal. To me, the pace of this movie is good. It goes. I didn't feel too bored. I never felt bored. Like, oh, so this is kind of like, no, another one of these. Let's go on with it. No, the pace kind of flew by. And I was kept entertained the entire time. I wasn't like, oh man, this is kind of like getting a little repetitive. No, I think the pace was very solid, and it kept the movie going. It kept the movie very engaging. Great soundtrack too. I'm a big hip hop fan. I'm a big hip hop and rap fan. And this movie for sure had a soundtrack that fit the times of 2021, 2020. Love the whole thing. Make the Stallion. List goes on and on. Love the soundtrack. It fit the 2021, 2020, the TikTok era. We're still in TikTok era, but like when TikTok was still kind of blowing up, the song, dancing songs and stuff like that. It just works. Like I said, the Craig Kalepsi has a great direction from this. I think he's super underrated. He knows how to really make a great ensemble piece really work, and make everyone have kind of their shine have their moment to be have their a shining moment. Whether it's again Anthony Ramos, whether it's America Ferrara, whether it's Paul Dano, whether it's Seth Rogen, it's everyone has their moment, which is really cool. I think it's really good. If a storyteller can do that and kind of showcase of like every one of their actors' talents, it's a win, and it's a very really impressive thing to do. To me, it's reminding me a lot of The Big Short meets Social Network, Moneyball minus the baseball stuff. I called it the love child of those three in my out of theater reaction. If you saw, I saw a resemblance of all three of those movies, whether Social Network with kind of the Fincher feel to it at times in this movie, or The Big Short during stocks and financial stuff, and Moneyball because a lot of heart. it's an underdog story too with this movie, like with Paul Dano playing the real guy, Roaring Kitty, which I'm blanking on his name right now too. But it has all the kind of feels of those movies, which again were all very well made and great movies too. I love Social Network, I love Moneyball, I love Big Short, but this kind of felt like the love child of all three of those. To me, the main three big MVPs for me were America Ferrara, Paul Dano, Anthony Ramos. They are all fantastic, but when the movie cuts around from different people and different B storylines and A story, B story, to me, I was always more invested in their storylines. Was Anthony Ramos, who was playing a GameStop guy during when this is happening, GameStop employee during this happened, or Paul Dano was the guy kind of like driving this stock kind of up a lot because he's on YouTube kind of saying, bet on this one, this one, and also America Ferrara, who's playing a nurse, who's playing a single mom nurse, who was just kind of just like trying to get a win. And again, she's a first responder, frontline worker. I know a lot of my friends during COVID were frontline first responders who really work at just like working their asses off. And then she wanted to win. She wanted to win during this kind of shitty time. And it's like you feel for her to. She's honestly to me like her and Anthony Ramos to me are like people that you can definitely like connect with, because a lot of people that had to work during COVID or had to work during COVID or had to go in person during COVID, like you can definitely root for them because they're the ones kind of like in person dealing with all this kind of crazy shit. And to me, all of them had their moments, but those three especially. But Paul Dano too, who I'm a huge fan of as well, even before the Riddler, stuff like There Will Be Blood and Looper. He's the kind of cornball, unlikely hero that you can root for because he's so unorthodox and he's so just like. He's out there, but he works because he's kind of a nobody. You root for him because he's trying to like get a win as well, and I think we're all trying to get a win at the end of the day. So, love all three of them. And you know what? I'm not a big Pete Davidson fan, but he definitely impressed me in this movie. And I thought his chemistry between Paul Dano, they played brothers, it felt authentic, it felt real, it felt genuine. And I thought they were actually brothers. Like I felt like they were brothers, like through and through. Like I felt the brotherhood throughout the entire movie. I have a brother myself, and I felt it was very genuine to me. My brother may go through some time when we're kind of like butting heads, stuff like that. So I definitely liked their brotherhood, and it felt really true to me. And I can definitely tell in like movies or shows where like playing siblings or playing your love interest, whatever, the chemistry is there. I feel like chemistry between him and Paul Dano was like, spectacular, and it really worked for me. Also, again, there was a lot in this episode. Theatrical. I'm really glad this movie got a theatrical release. Showed me that Sony's still invested in releasing movies at this level and budget. It's definitely a lower budget, mid-tier movie. This could have been a Netflix show, Netflix movie. This could have been a Hulu movie or Hulu series. But I really give props to Sony to like, still invest in other big budget stuff. This got a wide theatrical, got a limited release first and a wider theatrical release as the weeks went on. And unfortunately, it didn't do too well at the box office, which kind of breaks my heart. But I really give Sony a lot of props for doing this, for believing in their lower budget, mid-tier movies and giving us a wide theatrical release. I hope more people find it when it comes on streaming or it comes on Blu-ray or you buy it or rent it. But to me, it's like, wow, it's showing that studios are still interested in kind of like producing it and putting this movie out in theaters at these lower, mid-tier budget movies. So kudos to you guys. Again, it got great reviews as well, but I think it was just an idea of like maybe because it was too soon. But I don't know. But it makes me really happy that we have studios that are still believing in these kind of like lower budget movies. So that is an IP or that isn't like a huge big franchise. It's really refreshing to see that in a studio. Also, what I liked about it too is that it showed. I think people don't realize this too. It showed how many people literally moved to other states when things were shut down. Like I live in, me and Nick live in Arizona, and how many people moved here because we were open during COVID. And this movie kind of makes fun of that, like how many people moved to open states because they couldn't be in the lockdown anymore, and kind of showed maybe a little political jab. I don't know what it is, but to me I was kind of like, they're showing that these people moved to different states to avoid lockdown, to like do certain things. I'm just like, it's very interesting that you put that in the movie. So a little kind of take on that. But as much as I appreciate this movie and admire for what it was, I do some cons. I do some things I didn't like about it. Like I said, to me, the big thing too, like I'm surprised the movie was made so soon because it happened 2 years ago, and it's movie still fresh in our minds, and people still talk about it from time to time. I thought it was like, whoa, this was a very, very quick turnaround for this movie. It's only been 2 years, so maybe that's why I didn't do too well in the theaters because it was only a 2 year it was only a 2 year time gap between this movie being made and it actually happening. So that could have been, I think, a factor of it. Um, when it's funny, it's definitely it's super funny. But I thought it was being more of a comedy at times. It's definitely more of a drama. And I think some of the commercials make it look like like a full on comedy, or even the commercials on TikTok or Instagram, whatever, on YouTube. It's definitely more of a dramedy. There's funny parts to it for sure. I let that out multiple times, but I thought it'd be more of an emphasis on the comedy. I was kind of like, oh, I wish it would become funny. 'Cause you got a lot of good comedic actors in this. I was like, oh, okay, because I kind of wanted more from the comedy end of it. There was maybe I'm surprised they didn't mention AMC as well because I thought I remember during this time it was both AMC and it was GameStop, and they mentioned AMC like super quick in passing, and that was it. So I kind of wonder why that AMC wasn't brought up at all, or what brought up more in detail, more in depth in this movie, because this was a big part of both of them. I mean, both of them were going through at the same time. So I wonder why that was cut out or not mentioned. I think my biggest con of this movie, my biggest problem I had with this movie was, yeah, and you heard, I really do admire this movie for what it is and what they accomplished in the narrative storytelling of it all. But hard to believe that everyone was into stocks. Like they'll be at like every location Seth Rogen no, every location that Paul Dano was in, or some of the people were. They're like talking about stocks. It could be a coffee shop. It could be at like a CVS or whatever, or gas station. Stocks. And I'm like, was everyone really talking about stocks at this time? I find that hard to believe. It was like everyone like they're talking about this, and they asked the waiter like, what do you think about GameStop? And this one girl removes her mask, like, oh, I think about this, and it's like, really? Like, I find it hard to believe that everywhere they went, someone talking about stocks. Like they could go anywhere, like the gas station, CVS, the diner, literally anywhere. It was stocks. And I'm like, I find it hard to believe that everyone they talked to, everyone that they ran into was talking about stocks. So a little hard to believe. Um, yeah, no, I'm a big admirer of Seth Rogen. I always have been since I was a kid. I feel like it could have been maybe either replaced or more, or I don't know. His performance was kind of this like kind of very stale to me. I'm like, okay, again, I'm a huge fan of his, but he didn't really add anything to the movie, and it could have been played by anyone else. It could have been played like someone um like unknown, or someone like maybe like I can't even think of anyone, but like it didn't have to be him. I get it's star power, but also he worked with Craig Gillespie on Pam and Tommy. It didn't really feel like he fed into this movie as a performer personally. Um, Also, they do cover Robin Hood and those two CEOs. One was played by Sebastian Stan, and I forgot the other actor's name was the other CEO. Um, excuse me, but I felt like it could have been more executed or more developed too. It felt very rushed or kind of thrown in there, kind of last minute. So if that was kind of removed, I don't think it would have had a kind of big impact on me. Or they could have mentioned what happened with Robin Hood, with Robin Hood, with what Robin Hood did, and what they kind of like explored. That would make more sense. But to give him like try to give him a story, it just didn't even feel like. I know it didn't feel well written, or didn't feel like necessary either. Or it could have been in the past, and it could have been on the news. Robin Hood does this, but to give them the storyline, it just didn't feel like needed at all. And also Nick Offerman, love Nick Offerman. He made like 2 scenes, and they put him a lot in the trailer. He's barely in it too, and I was kind of like, wow, you got this big actor right here, Nick Offerman, who's big again. Everyone knows him as Ron Swanson. Also, he was great in The Last of Us. Very underutilized, and I'm like, you could have utilized him more than Seth Rogen, if you ask me, and or vice versa, or have more Nick Offerman and not as much of Seth Rogen, or have someone else play Seth Rogen's part. But that's how I felt about it too. So again, I still super enjoyed this movie. It might be my top 10 of the year. Actually, at my end of the year, I'm giving this right now a solid 7.5, almost to an 8. I went in kind of just like hearing good things about it. Great at the TIFF Toronto Film Festival. I've been kind of following this movie for a while with the production and stuff like that, and I was very impressed with it. Again, I had a good time with it. The trailer sold me when they released a few months ago. I was in on this movie. I think it's still playing. If you can see it, go see it. You know, I think it's probably in now to maybe like a bargain theater or like maybe cheaper tickets because it's been out for a couple months. But again, I give you Sony props for really getting this movie a theatrical release. And so if you haven't seen it yet, I'd recommend seeing it in theaters. But if you're gonna wait, watch it when it comes on Netflix or Hulu or Spotify or that too, or HBO Max or whatever, or rent it or buy it on Blu-ray. It's a very very good movie. I had a lot of fun with it. Again, it's a biopic. I learned much, but it kind of made me want to go back and kind of read some more interviews and learn about the guy that Paul Dano plays, Roaring Kitty, and stuff like that. So again, I had a good time with it. Super recommend it. But yeah, guys, that's my kind of review roundup episode. I haven't done one of these in a while, so it's good to be back. Like I said, I think the boys and I will be back this week with a full episode of the show. I'm also be reviewing, said that Alexander Payne's new movie, The Holdovers, which Paul Giamatti, Davine Joy Randolph, which I absolutely love. I cannot wait to review this movie. It's so good. I think it's hitting limited theaters November 3rd. I know it's hitting that in Phoenix November 3rd, and like more markets throughout the weeks. But I love this movie so much. I can't wait to review it. But yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed this review roundup episode. Hope you had a great Halloween. Hope you're getting ready for the holiday season. I know I am. But as always, guys, thank you so much. And as always, we will see you at the movies. Take care, guys. Bye bye.